Hello, friends, and I am both on YouTube and I'm also here on Instagram. And it's lovely to see you all coming in. It's wonderful to join us for our second episode of 2023. I'm waiting for my lovely friends to come find us on the Instagram, and then I will bring up. There's Catherine. There she is. She should be joining me in a second. And there's Philippa. Come on up, ladies. Friends.
Hello. I'm going to have to move this very gently, otherwise it falls over.
Yay, we're all here.
We are here.
Right. Wonderful. We're all in. We can all hear each other?
I think so.
Yep.
We good?
Yep.
Yes.
We're good. We're good.
Spectacular. We're going to keep it tight tonight. We've been in discussions and it's all about keeping it tight like a tiger. So I'm going to kick straight off with the usual. Welcome, friends, to History After Dark. As you can see, we are back on our deceased gits shenanigans, and it's git number 2, ? Robert the Bruce. Before we do that, I'm going to do the usual, friends. It's 8:15. GMT, BST, whatever. PM also. And it's winter, so it is in fact dark. We are here for History After Dark. We called it that because it was winter when we made it, and also because it will sometimes get a little bit shady, a little bit dark on this channel. We want to teach you about history. We want to discuss history with each other, but we also want to be able to do the swearing. And so we're going to do that, and the smut, and just generally look at the parts of history that are normally not discussed on our own private social medias that we've put out, which are all PG-13. This is where we come to be PG-13 and we let our freak flags fly. So with that being said, if you happen to be in an open plan office with a boss who's judgmental, put a headphone in. If you're in the car and you've got a kid there, we'll call him Timmy. Timmy's a problem. If you saw our Instagram, Timmy looked like a creepy baby, a creepy Elizabethan baby, and has the eyes of the devil. So that's Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
And if Timmy is going to go into school tomorrow and ask the teacher what the various profane and deviant things we have talked about might mean, meaning that you get caught at the school so you can't have a coffee in your car whilst weeping, then frankly, throw the whole child away, but also put a headphone in. Or then you can always watch us back on the playback. We will be on the playback on both our YouTube. If you're not following there, make sure you are. And also it will be on the IGTV over here on Instagram. That being said, if we say something that is so horrific, it's happened once before, that's why I bring it up, this may not be allowed to remain on any of the channels. It might have to be yeast into the sun because we don't want a legal case. It's only happened once before, which means we've got better, but also we still have the potential to do it. That, my friends, is the disclaimer. For those of you who have just joined, we are talking about a deceased git, ? Robert the Bruce. There we go.
Before we continue, I have to show you my T-shirt.
Oh yes, apparently Catherine's got a
So I bought this a while ago, forgot about it, because when I bought it from Redbubble, it came up smaller than normal for a medium. And I was like, oh, but I think I've lost a little bit of weight, so I've shoehorned myself into it. But I had forgotten about it.
Beaver is my spirit animal. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
You get that surprise.
I completely forgot about it until like this morning. I wonder if I can find it until I can squeeze myself into it. Just about.
We have Deb say that she's in the car with the dog. Does that count as a child? Well, if your dog is is telling tales on you, firstly,
we want to meet him.
Dog. Secondly, you need to take that animal to the circus because you are sitting on a gold mine of a puppy. Well done.
My Insta comments are frozen already.
Well,
there's lots of love for the shirt. Lots of love for you having a beaver spread across your chest.
A spatchcocked beaver. Lovely.
The best kind.
Yeah.
Sure.
And how else would you eat one?
Anyway, shall we get on? This is keeping it tight.
Early doors. Short and tight, just like us.
Hey, we have once again separated out the workload for today's, and we picked our favourite bits. And once again, and I was last to pick this time, but I have ended up doing the same bit as I was doing last week. In fact, the ladies we've all ended up doing the same bits you were doing last week. So I am heading things up by talking about Robert the Bruce's early life, as much as we know of it. Catherine, you're doing the battliness and the warfarey the head smashy killy bits. And Philippa, you're talking about life and legacy.
Yes.
Correct.
Death and legacy, yeah.
Death and legacy.
Death and legacy. Yeah.
Death and legacy. So as I've got the early bit, shall I kick us off where we meet our Robert? Confusingly, as with so many things, there are a lot of Roberts involved. So I have made notes to try and keep track of who's whom. We'll see where we go. Robert the Bruce, Robert the First. We'll go with Robert the First because they've all got the same surname. Robert the First is born on the 11th of July, 1274. We think he's born at somewhere called Turnberry Castle, which is in Ayrshire. His mother is Marjorie or Margaret, and she is in her own right Countess of Carrick because she is the sole heir. There's not a brother. Margaret's first husband, so Robert's mum's first husband before he's born, had died on crusade at Acre, and he was there in the company of the future King Edward I. So already we have this tie to the Bruce family that connect to the English King Edward. Margaret marries Robert's father, also called Robert, about a year after her first husband's death. Now, Robert I's grandfather comes onto the scene in a minute. He's also called Robert. Alexander III was King of Scots. His successor was his granddaughter. She is Margaret, Maid of Norway. She is living in Norway. She's a very small child. And she is a small child when Alexander dies. So Scotland is being governed by nobility, by councillors, much as it was when there were child monarchs in the future. Unfortunately, Margaret, Maid of Norway, dies in 1290 when she's just 7 years old. So she never gets a chance to rule in her own right. In terms of who's going to be king next, our Robert's grandfather, so not the one who marries the widow of the guy who dies at Acre, his dad, he has a claim to the Scots throne. His main rival in this claim is John Balliol. Both of them are descendants of King David. Now, in trying to figure out who's going to be the next monarch, Edward I of England pops up and he is asked to arbitrate in favour of who should be king. He will come down on the Balliol claim, but in order to even do the arbitration, he demands a recognition of what he sees should be Scotland's appropriate relationship and responsibilities with regards to England, namely that they should be behaving as if they are the client kingdom that he deems them to be. Edward wants them to pay homage to him as the king when they are, as he sees it, a vassal state. How much I've just seen someone say King David, not the biblical one. It ain't that old. It is King David I, and to my knowledge, there's only one King David of Scots, but don't quote me on that.
That's right. I think so.
But he is numbered. He does have a regnal number, so maybe there's another one. But he's David I. So Edward wants Scotland to recognise itself as a vassal state to England. The question is, how much is he going to be promised by the people who he's electing, and how much is he actually going to get? And also, what's it going to cost? Both him and the person he chooses. King John Balliol is chosen, and he yields, as far as his nobles are concerned, far too much to the English king. And so by 1295, Scotland is being essentially governed by a council of nobles. And then the following year, 1296, John Balliol is forced to abdicate. Just before his abdication, the eldest Robert the Bruce, the one who had the joint claim with John Balliol, the grandfather of our Robert the Bruce, he dies. And so his son, our Robert's dad, chooses not to pay homage to King John Balliol for his Scots inheritance. Instead, he makes his way to go and serve King Edward I of England and commands at Carlisle Castle. So what we're seeing is Robert the Bruce's dad is essentially putting himself into a place of loyalty and fealty with the English king. And it seems at this stage, young Robert, our Robert, is following his father in that allegiance. When his father takes on his father's inheritance, that means that our Robert takes charge of the Carrick title. And in May 1296, he is commanded by Edward to receive the men of Carrick into King Edward's peace before then himself going and paying his homage and fealty with his father to Edward I. This happens in August when the English king is holding his victory parliament at Berwick. 8 months after this victory parliament, our Robert becomes one of the leaders of a Scots revolt against Edward's conquest and against the English occupation of Scotland. And then the following May in 1297, we've got another famous name, William Wallace. His uprising begins in the May of 1297. And as that happens, the Bishop of Carlisle is concerned enough about our Robert's loyalty that he demands that he swear a solemn oath of fealty to King Edward I, which Robert does. Immediately, he gathers around him his father's men, his father's knights, and he repudiates that oath. He says it's been made under duress and that he, a Scot, must take up the cause of his own people. He invites the soldiers to do so. They're like, "No, mate, you're all right." But that doesn't stop him. And at least for the next few years, he does seem to be resisting English control in Scotland and essentially working as part of the nationalist cause for the nation of the Scots. So that's birth to perhaps the beginning of some battliness, I think.
Battliness.
Can we jump in and explain the Bruce?
The Bruce.
I can't.
Why is okay? I can if that's helpful. So
Yes.
the Robert the Bruce ancestor basically came over with William the Conqueror, and their lands in France were a version of a French version of Bruce, basically. So it was de Bruce, as in of Bruce, where they were from in France, and that is where you get the Bruce.
Yes, we get a lot of those because we have like one that rings a bell for me clearly is Maud de Breosa, who is obviously Maud of Breosa. But yeah, the and de, I suppose, is quite a
yes. So it's
So
off,
it's
but
really
then it's got changed to the over time. Yeah.
Yes.
But
yes, he's in the biographies, he is sometimes referred to as Robert de Bruce, as you rightly say, but also Robert Bruce. It's like Simon of Sudbury. Sometimes he is Simon of Sudbury, and sometimes he's just Simon Sudbury. And he does come from Sudbury.
Is that the guy whose head is in some cupboard somewhere still?
Yes, it is. Peasants Revolt. And I do need to. I can't quite figure out if his surname is in fact Sudbury.
It was a bit fluid.
That would be a bit
in
crap, though, wouldn't it? That'd be like a bit of a rubbish surname, wouldn't it? Really.
Sudbury from Sudbury, even.
Yeah, just a bit rubbish, really. A bit unoriginal. Right, could have done a bit better.
Is it any more unoriginal than be like, Bob, he makes clothes, tailor? Oh, his son is also a tailor. There we go. It's a family tradition. Oh, hang on. That's Dave. He's John's son.
John's son.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. Maybe it's not the worst way of picking a surname then. Oh, no, sorry, it's not the best.
Oh, we've got nosy historian. King David II succeeded Robert the Bruce as King of Scotland. So that's where we have a David I and then a David II. Right. Interesting.
Okay. So in terms of fightiness, obviously, well, we're here to discuss him because he's a bit of a git. So there's kind of like two main ways, I think, that people may view him like this. And then I was reading it and I was thinking, oh, it doesn't seem that gittish. And then I realized that I just have my expectations of people in this period are so low.
On the floor. The
so
bar is
low.
on the
Yeah,
floor.
like virtually under the floor, in fact, that
The
I
basement.
realized that actually he probably was really horrible in many ways, but he was just a sort of a product of a time when everyone was a git, and you get to a certain level. And it goes back to what we said before. Why would you want to be king? Because you spend your whole life battling to try and be king. And then when you are king, everyone tries to kill you. There we go. So yes, so you talked about obviously this initial fealty of his family to King Edward I, which a lot of people didn't like. A bit like now, but then as you say, later on we get past this phase and he really does become, this occurred to me earlier, he's like an early 14th century Nicola Sturgeon, isn't he? He's all about the Scottish independence. It's all about that. So one of the ways that he isn't necessarily seen as very popular, both at the time and even subsequently through history, is Kat mentioned William Wallace. And a lot of people saw him as betraying William Wallace. And some people say, well, do you know what? We're really lacking primary sources in this period for this chap and the people around him. And they don't believe that this sort of classic sense of betrayal we have and that you see sort of represented in like TV and film and stuff like that. Him and William Wallace, there's no evidence. Something amusing come up in the comments that I can't see. I'm looking at Kat's face. She's doing that thing.
First of all, we've had somebody saying that nobody could be more of a git than Longshanks. Lottie saying nobody could. I mean, that's facts, truth and facts. But Mad Journalist, do we want unoriginal for surnames? The early Greeks and Cypriots got their last names after their jobs, so we now literally have a Dr. Holedigger, whose ancestors were literally hole diggers, and he is, friends, an OBGYN. Dr. Holedigger is a gynae.
I thought grave digger.
No, OBGYN, obs and gynae.
Oh, we're back to beavers again.
I mean, I'd probably change doctors just because that's hilarious. Semi-tempted to move for all of my gynecological care from Dr.
Holedigger.
Who wouldn't? That's
brave,
so funny.
Brave women. Who wouldn't?
That's terrific. You see, that's a much better way of like having your surname. Comedy brings the punters in, surely.
I knew a baker once whose name was Sivrite.
Perfect.
No.
So that's not obviously it. Yeah.
Love it.
And a lady who made the tea at Amateur Dramatics was named I've forgotten, Kettle. Her surname was Kettle.
You see, that's more like somebody who's living up to their surname rather than their surname
being
based on.
I must make the tea.
Yes.
A Mad Journalist says that she cried for a solid 3 hours when she found out. Ma'am, I do not blame you, because I would still be. It would be a test of my pelvic floor to have that individual as my gynae. I must say.
I think there's something slightly reassuring about it in a strange sort of way.
It's a nation of hole diggers. It's just a family line of hole diggers. They've done this.
Lottie Rose.
Root around.
Last thing you want when you go to the gym is finding out his name's Holedigger and he's getting his miner's lump on before having a poke around.
Just turn this up to full volume. Let's go.
What makes I'll come back to it. What makes somebody go, oh, I think I'll be a gynecologist?
Well, I mean, at the same time, what makes somebody go, I'm going to be a proctologist? Like,
what's one of them?
What bumholes?
Oh, well, there's a specific.
Well, I think it might be intestinal as well. I think it's.
I was going to say podiatrist.
Also podiatrist, yeah.
Weird.
Chiropodist, dentist, ear surgeon.
Gross.
Yeah.
What about eyeballs, mate?
Yeah,
what about eyeballs?
Generally less fluids involved, or
bit squelchy.
Yeah, that's what.
Anyway,
I could never.
Oh, we need to get back to Robert the Bruce. We've
tangent.
Okay. Tangent corner.
I forgot where I was now.
Yeah.
William Wallace.
He's a problem.
Yes. He is a
He's a
problem.
problem.
He was. So this chap was. I now have to like find where I've written about William Wallace. Okay,
No
so
woad. There was no woad or tartan. He didn't wear a kilt.
no,
Let's put
there
it
was
there.
no kilts, no
Yeah.
kilts at all. All right, so William Wallace was what was he was a title? He was on campaign in Scotland. So the thing about William Wallace was he just kind of went for it. He had this very specific type of sort of battle approach, if you like, that could be described more like a guerrilla warfare. And in the age where we still had, I don't know how, if this was as strong in England, in Scotland as it was in England, but this real sense of chivalry and the way that things should be done, even in terms of battle and hostages and all things like that. And William Wallace was like, no, I'm just going in and I'm going for it. So he obviously is very much against sort of the Scottish king. He's against Balliol, and he knows that I was going to say Braveheart then. RTB, RTB is having Robert the Bruce. Has obviously sworn his fealty to Edward I. So they look like they've got this, obviously, this clash of personalities. And but as we know, Robert the Bruce, Kat mentioned how Balliol became unseated, and this creates this little bit of a sort of a who's going to come into the gap. But there's this thing that Robert the Bruce, or RTB, betrayed William Wallace. So how can this have happened? This is one of the big things that people look back on Robert the Bruce and say this is why he was a git, or words to that effect. Obviously, they had this opposing sides, and William Wallace had this reputation for being really quite ruthless and unfair and unchivalric in battle. And Robert the Bruce kind of got wind of this, and he knows that the situation is dicey for Balliol, and he thinks, what can I do? I don't have this stronger claim, or I don't have this stronger position, so I'm going to have to do this on the battlefield. If I want to make it to the throne, I'm going to have to do this on the battlefield, and I might have to be a little bit unconventional. So he came down. So there's no evidence that him and William Wallace ever met at all. Now, just because you haven't met someone, it doesn't, of course, mean that you can't betray them. But he wanted to learn about what William Wallace was doing in terms of his guerrilla style warfare. He's like, I can see this working for this guy. He took on this English force and he routed them against all the odds. Well, William Wallace then takes this a little bit too far, gets a little bit too big for his boots, takes on England, initially he was fighting sort of something internal, did really well. Then he went on and he takes on this big English force of Edward III. And of course, he can't cope with it. He is captured and he is taken to London. And I have to find what this bloke's name was. I'm really sorry. So this chap who obviously has sworn allegiance to Edward, I'm really sorry. I'll try and find his name in just a second. Oh God, right, hang on, I will find it. This is another way that people are saying that if you don't see this betrayal, it's because he switches one side to the other. We're looking at the inheritance of Carrick as well. It's another reason why people think that he maybe changed his allegiance to make sure that he would get his inheritance. So we have this guy who basically captures Wallace and he takes him down and he hands him over, and he's tried at Westminster Hall, obviously for like treason against Edward I, and they throw him into the Tower, and he is summarily soon after executed. And so a lot of people are saying, well, this chap has done it. He was the one that basically essentially captured William Wallace and put him in it, and led to him being in the Tower. But soon after, only months after this, Edward I dies. And this chap, and therefore this chap who had put, I really need to find his name. I'm so sorry. I've got bits of paper everywhere. And I remembered it, and now I've forgotten. So I'm not doing very well, really. But this chap now says, well, Robert the Bruce had said to him, swear fealty to me and you will be released. And he was like, no, I can't swear fealty to you because I've already said it to Edward I and I can't give my word to two men. So Robert the Bruce goes, okay, fair. Actually, I think that makes you quite an honest man. So rather than killing him, for getting rid of William Wallace, he just puts him in prison as well. So when Edward dies, he goes, okay, now Edward's gone, I can swear fealty to you. And he let him out. So a lot of people felt that Robert the Bruce had betrayed William Wallace, not in terms of battlefields or anything like that, but he should have killed this bloke whose name I can't remember. Because he was the one that had led to the capture and therefore the execution of William Wallace. To be fair to the bloke whose name I can't remember, and I'll find it in a minute, once he swore fealty to Robert the Bruce and to Scotland, he fought for Scottish independence for the rest of his life. So it did seem that when he put his money where his mouth is, he kept it there until he could basically find a way of getting out of it.
Irish Birdie has put John de Menteith.
Well done. I did that on purpose. It was a test.
There you go.
You passed.
At the end time, we'll say Google it.
Yeah, Google it for us. I'm also checking out the YouTube comment, and Intrepid Frady Cat is saying, "No kilts? ? My son will be crushed when he finds out." The first mention of the word kilt is 1500s. I want to say late 1500s. It's certainly 1500s, and the kilt as we know it, tartan and all, the kilt that we see as being traditional,
I've just found where
is
I've written
18th century. So yeah, kilts and tartan are well, I'm not sure when clan tartan start, but certainly kilts are later.
I just found where I wrote it. Anyway.
Mazel tov.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Irish Birdie says she googled it. Thank you. We're glad to have you.
Taking our advice.
We're glad to have you in the chat.
Thank you for ignoring us.
That is part of the disclaimer. Don't Google it unless I say Google it. In fact, if we don't know the answer to something right now, I might just kind of go, right, hive mind, Google it. Can somebody Google it and chuck it in the chat?
Yes. Anyway, so we see a bit of a rise of Robert the Bruce after this, and initially his bid for sort of kingship doesn't go too well. He has these first couple of battles that he fights goes sort of horribly wrong, and he ends up so sort of having to get out of the country and get away as well. Now, there's a bit of a thing about a guy that he killed, and this was one of the things that led to him having to kind of leg it slightly. And this was John III, okay, or John Comyn, I'm going to say. Comyn, yes, depending on how you pronounce it. Okay, so he at one stage, after all this stuff with John Balliol and William Wallace, he had one rival to the throne, and it was this guy. Now, the traditional story is that he met him and he murdered him at a holy location. And then, so all the commons, whatever it was you said, were after him. And this is one of the reasons why he kind of had to disappear and go underground for a little while. But there is another story that actually they were going to be singing off of the same song sheet, and they agreed to meet. But at that point, other people interjected, a fight broke out, RTB stabbed him, and then later on he died. So we're not too sure whether or not this was just, he got in there under false pretenses to kill him and then killed him because he wanted to be the only claimant to the throne, or if there was something else going on. They came together to try and discuss it, and something cracked off from there. But that obviously sort of alienated a lot of people. That was his rival to the throne. He was kind of excommunicated for a little bit, but he did become king only a few months later. So if you play the waiting game, people, it can obviously, I found this myself today with something. I had to play a long waiting game, but that's another story. This is why
he struck a deal with the church, didn't he? He struck a deal with the church.
As
absolved me of this murder, and I will, when I'm king, I will protect the independence of the Scottish Church.
Yes,
and they even signed a document, didn't they? So, yeah, there you go.
He knew what he was doing, which is, you know, is a wide thing to do. So he started another, and that was in 1306. He started another campaign in 1307, which didn't go too well. But in 1308, because he had some resistance from these people and some other guys called the MacDougals, but he crushed all of them. He was like, no. And in 1308, he started the Civil War, and he routed the English. He crushed the English, and he dislodged the English occupation. So, of course, at this time, he's very popular. He's on the up. It's going well. And we might say, well, that was a gittish thing to do. But, you know, did the English really deserve to be there? I would argue very possibly not, to be honest. So, you know, now, in March 1309, the Parliament at St Andrews declares that the people of Scotland are happy for Robert to be their king. and he is crowned. And with only the first of kings, or the only king of Scotland, never to be crowned with the stone of Scone. But that didn't seem to bother anybody. They didn't seem to think that this affected his kind of kingliness, or whatever, however it is you want to describe him. So we go along quite well. He's doing quite well on the independence front. He's reasonably popular. Nobody seems to want to particularly kill him or anything like that. And by the time you get to 1314, it's all quite pucker. And there's only a small number of castles in Scotland that are kind of still under English control that are standing against him. And in fact, in 1314, he demolished Edinburgh Castle. He demolished Edinburgh. That's a bit rude, isn't it? That's a bit gittish. I'm not too happy about that.
When's that get rebuilt?
Well, yeah, because it's there, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's quite splendid. If anybody hasn't been and is thinking of looking, I would recommend it. It's rather wonderful. Anyway, of these small number of castles, Stirling Castle is probably the one that's the most significant. His brother, who he won a war for and made Lord Lieutenant, whatever it was, of Ireland, he'd laid siege to this castle at Lent. And the guy that was kind of running this castle, the commander of the garrison, was a guy called Sir Philip Mowbray. And he had heard that the English might be coming, either Edward II might be coming. He was a bit like, oh, I'm going to hedge my bets here a little bit. So he said, okay, I will surrender to the English king if Edward I has not come with a relieving force by June. And then I will surrender. So if no one comes to sort of look after me and basically save me and my castle, I'm not up for this anymore. You can have it. It's yours. So this is where we get the Battle of Bannockburn, which I think is the other really, really famous battle that Robert the Bruce is famous for. So Edward II comes over. He's like, yeah, that's him on the horse. I'm really sorry. I don't have any coconuts, so I don't know what that was all about. So over he comes with this massive force, thinking that he's going to be able to get into Stirling Castle and it's going to be dead easy. But Robert the Bruce is like, no. I have less men than you, but mine are very motivated. They're better equipped. They're better prepared. And he was able to assess the ground and get a high vantage point. So Edward rocks up. Oh, hang on a minute. There's quite a lot of people here. But in the past, because we've gone with this kind of like guerrilla warfare attitude with Robert the Bruce, they've often looked and gone, a lot of the Scottish have gone, we've got smaller forces, we aren't as well organised, and they've legged it overnight. So Edward's greatest fear at this point is that when dawn comes, oh, Philippa, you keep coming in and out. When the light comes, they'll woke up and the Scottish will have gone and they won't get their battle and he won't get his opportunity to try and start to steal a load of Scotland back. But because the Scottish now, under Robert the Bruce, is still going in for this guerrilla-style tactics, not very chivalrous like Edward II would have been. No, he's there. He's prepared the ground. He knows the lay of the land because the English have a good lay of the land in Scotland and they come down this hill. And he charges them and he absolutely floors them. His army floor them. They lose 10 to 12,000 men, apparently. You have to be a little bit careful with these battle statistics for various different reasons, but it's a bit of a thrashing. Edward's up to Stirling Castle and Mowbray goes, no, mate, sorry. Struck a deal, it's too late. So Edward legs it, does very well to avoid capture. And so really we see this is kind of like the high point for Robert the Bruce. The English have tried to come back in and he's pushed them away and he's really overcome. The way he's done it is not chivalric. It's not the way you're supposed to do it, but he's upped the ante. And under him, he really does manage to help Scotland regain and keep a lot of control over itself. If you want a really good account of the Battle of Bannockburn, if you go to the website of the Battlefields Trust, type that in, and they have a document on there prepared by the Scottish. Can't find where I have written it now. Oh God, I'm not doing very well. I've got bits of paper everywhere. It's the Battlefield Report from Historic Scotland for the Battlefields Trust. And that's written out really, really well, all the details of that battle and how it went and the numbers and the layout and everything. So that's really worth looking at if you are a little bit more interested in the Battle of Bannockburn. So there we go. So that was Bannockburn.
The Battle of Bannockburn. There was it was a bit like chess. Everyone got stuck on pink. And
I love marzipan.
I can't eat it; it'll kill me.
Oh,
Oh,
I'll eat,
oh, yeah.
I'll eat yours
Yeah.
for you. So yeah, so it was all really nice in my head until I'd got all the bits of paper out and then
So
went wrong.
You may have said this because I kept being thrown off for some reason. I didn't realise until we looked into the Battle of Bannockburn that it's a stream. It's a tributary, isn't it? The River
Yes.
Forth. I didn't realise that. I was thinking
Yeah.
Bannockburn must be a place. But it's so why it wasn't Forth or the other tributary, which name escapes me at the moment, that the English were stuck inside of, I don't know. But maybe Bannockburn just sounded better in a Scottish accent.
In a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
How everyone liked Battenberg and it was very similar.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they're Battenberg yet. Not the cake anyway.
Were you
Yeah.
there? Were you there? Do you know that?
I mean,
Because they did, because I nipped back in my time machine and left a load out.
Oh, you're not allowed to use that. You know this.
Well,
you're
I did.
banned.
So,
Yeah.
Hang on, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Catherine, is Philippa moving on your Instagram? Because she's not moving on my Instagram.
yeah, I have her. She's alive on mine.
Oh,
I
I'm
can
back.
hear you because I can hear you, but in my Instagram, your face is your video isn't moving.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't like me today. It's throwing me off. It's throwing me off twice.
Yeah,
I can hear you perfectly.
It's
Just
having
a
a
quick-
glitchy night, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it
I've got
is.
no comments.
A quick question to people on the Instagram in the comments: if you can see Philippa moving, chuck a thumbs up in the comments, just so it might just be me. You've just frozen for me,
know.
Catherine. You're
there's-
moving.
On my horse.
On a horse. Oh, well, as long as you can hear me. If it throws me off again, might be a bit awkward since as I'm doing the next bit.
Yes.
just hold your notes up. Well, no, because I don't know.
Okay, I think
Do you have any
there's a
Amy and Daddy Pig.
No.
thumbs up are coming up. There are delays, I think, in our chat function, which is cool. Okay, I'm going to take that as it's just a me problem. So many things are.
Sorry,
frankly.
I'm not being very
I am the
dynamic
problem.
for you tonight.
It's a
But
you problem, Cat.
But we can all hear her. So you look very peaceful on my.
Do I?
Instagram.
It's not pause me on some stupid face.
This. You look like you're pensing. You're pensing about something spiritual in nature. So tell us about his death and about his legacy.
Yeah, well, so around 1327, he starts suffering from something. The chroniclers describe it as leprosy, but there's lots about leprosy that, as we understand it, that doesn't kind of tie in with everything else that's going on. But it could explain anything as a skin issue from eczema. There's even been suggested it could have been a stroke or TB, syphilis, motor neuron disease, cancer. So basically, who knows?
Disease.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
No one knows. No
Tombola.
No.
And this week's disease.
Yeah, and there's nothing that
Seven.
seems to indicate that the king or his physicians seem to know exactly what was wrong either. And actually, it's not the Scottish records that even talk of leprosy. It's the English records. So, you know,
I read that's because it was like a propaganda thing because leprosy was like only ropey people die of leprosy. Only bad Satanist ropey people.
There's no evidence of him isolating or anything like that. So, but so he falls ill with this sort of continuous disease of some sort. Clearly, must have some kind of outward physical, skin condition that goes with it. And he dies. He dies on the 7th of June, 1329. By the time he does, he's become. No, I don't think he was. Intrepid Frady Cat's asking, was he really disfigured? I don't think so. This is the thing. The contemporaries don't seem to say. And actually, we'll come back to it, but I don't think so. No. But yes, he's. I think he's quite a religious man. But on his deathbed, he bestows lots of land and lots of silver on various different religious foundations to kind of. I read it as sort of red betting.
Make up for it and a bit of
You do a bit of praying for my immortal soul, and
Yeah.
you do a bit of praying for my immortal
Just in
soul.
case anybody changes their mind.
And between you, we've got the right one. So yeah, that was the way I sort of interpreted that. Yeah, so basically, because he got a Dominican friar as well, Dunfermline Abbey and the Chapel of Saint Surf. So he's actually only 1 month shy of his 55th birthday, which isn't that, like, he got a lot in. He got a lot in his 54 years,
There's a lot of
didn't he?
potential near-death experiences, so he did pretty well there.
He did do pretty well.
Mhm.
He's buried at Dunfermline Abbey. Massive, nice grand funeral, everything that you'd expect. But of course, Scotland goes through their Reformation. The abbey is destroyed and his tomb is destroyed as well. So it gets lost for a while. It is rediscovered. And actually, just back to Intrepid Frady Cat's question, there was some research done on a cast of his skull that was done when they rediscovered the tomb, and we'll maybe get onto that in a little bit. There was a cast of his skull done before he was reinterred, and that doesn't show any signs of leprosy. So obviously we don't know what the skin would look like, but maybe there would be, I don't know, people who know about this stuff, maybe there'd be some signs on the bone if there was some particularly deep skin thing. I don't know.
We'd certainly see syphilis on the bone, particularly if you've got
Yeah.
tertiary stain. And if it
Or
was affecting his
leprosy.
face, you probably wouldn't see leprosy in the face because it's about the nerves dying. So unless his nose got like worn
That was
away,
it.
probably.
So, yeah. And they also had a foot bone, which wasn't reinterred for some reason. So they did get to see that as well. So yeah, so that, and those didn't show any signs of leprosy or syphilis, actually. Anyway, so his tomb. Yes, right. Okay. So I just thought you might like this because it's in Latin. He had quite a long inscription on his tomb. Here lies the invincible, blessed King Robert. Whoever reads about his feats will repeat the many battles he fought. But by his integrity, he guided to liberty the kingdom of Scots. May he now live in heaven. So yeah, but then he has this grand tomb at Dunfermline Abbey, but the Scottish Reformation means you've got two sackings basically of the abbey. You have a cleansing in 1559 and in 1560 a complete sacking, and then it just is abandoned. It falls into decay. And it's 1818 where workmen discover the vault and discover his oak coffin. The body was entirely encased in lead, double layer of lead, and the top around the head shaped into a crown. So they're thinking, this is Robert. And the shrouded gold. It was shrouded in gold cloth, so cloth of gold. So that also
wow,
was quite a good. Yeah, so that's still there in 1818. But of course, we do like to poke around in the 19th century when we come across a body. Yeah.
they're like, human remains. I will take this bone and I will make it into a pen pot because why wouldn't I?
Why would you do that? So they remove the lead. This is how we know there's two layers. And they inspect the skeleton. You have he's been embalmed because the sternum shows the saw marks where to take out the heart. A plaster cast is made of the skull, which is what was able to be looked at in 2017. And they measure him. Now, his entire skeleton measures 5'11", which means he would probably have had a standing height of about 6'1".
Wow!
So he's an impressively sized individual. Which all of us down here at 5'3" can. I always like, I'll have one of them inches, thanks. So yeah, so he's a big guy.
You want one of Robert's inches, do you? For the part?
Well, I did. Well, as part of the research, did watch Chris Pine. You're welcome. It was hard work.
What happened? What's that?
In Outlaw King. Have you not watched Outlaw King?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Someone was asking about whether we'd watched Outlaw King earlier on. Treat yourself.
Miles. wild.
I had a question. Mad journalist. So his grave is basically unmarked. Oh, hello.
Well.
And the only clue was him was the lead and the gold cloth. Then.
Yes. Yes.
Wowzers. So it might not be him then, or is it him?
I think the placement
Well, that would be quite disappointing, wouldn't it?
is him.
Ask Philippa Langley; she'll sort it out.
Yeah. I've got questions about that. Anyway, let's not get on to that.
Jesus, no, let's not.
No, let's not. So anyway,
If you're going to start questioning that in public, I am disassociating myself from you for that.
We're getting lots of love for Outlaw King.
Outlaw King.
Being told we must watch it.
And a lot of people going, really? You're all that little? Yes, we are. Big personalities, small stature.
We're like terriers. We'll rip your throat out.
Yeah, don't
Run off the chance.
So he does get reinterred, though. You'll be pleased to know. Even though they've been poking around, he's reinterred 21 months later. He's reinterred in November 1819. And they do all sorts of things to the coffin to make sure that things are that it's not messed.
What were they doing for 21 months?
Allowing him
between them and their god.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I do not want to know what they were doing with human remains for 21 months. Just sticking their little fingers in, being like, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did in the period. They were like, I'm going to just poke my finger in there and see what happens. They did all of the touchy touch.
They did all of the touchy touch.
They did
like the touchy touch. Now let's get on to what happens next. So we're going to go legacy and then legends, right? So
nice.
Nice.
So he has because it's from Robert. Well, let me explain. It's from Robert the Bruce that we get the Stuart dynasty with his grandson. But when Robert dies, the son from his second marriage, I think Elizabeth de Burgh, Burgh, he marries. They have a son. That's the David II that we referred to earlier. So
and
he
not
is
called Robert.
Yes, not a Robert. So he he's succeeded by his son David II, but he dies without issue. Robert had a daughter called Marjorie from his first marriage to Isabella of Mar. She had married the 6th High Steward, whose name is William Stuart. The family had adopted the name Stuart to represent the fact that they had this kind of, they were 6th generation. I don't know, actually it was an earlier generation who got the name Stuart, but to recognize themselves as, the family as this important position. And it is Marjorie and William Stuart's son, Robert. We get back to Robert.
Here we go.
Yeah. Who becomes Robert II of Scotland, and he's the first Stuart. He's Robert Stuart. So that's where the Stuart dynasty begins.
I love
ends
it.
with Queen Anne, Queen of Britain.
Is that Robert Stuart still spelling his name with a W? Does the UA start later? I
think the UA starts later. They've gone from Stuart to Stuart, but I don't know if this is like verbally or they write it down this way. I'm not completely.
Don't you still see the W with Mary Queen of Scots
husband? Yes,
or stepbrother or something.
It changes around. It changes around that time. It changes around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's stepbrother. I'm going to go with stepbrother stroke husband stroke cousin. One of those.
There are a lot of Stuarts involved. They are blood related.
And actually, in that period, you could be someone's all of that thing.
Yes.
Wreaths, not trees.
So why did Mary Queen of Scots' dad say
I have a video
started with a lass and it'll end with a lass?
Yeah. Well, because it starts with Marjorie. So it's James the 5th of Scotland says it came with a lass, it'll end with a lass, because it starts with Marjorie and he's expecting the Stuart dynasty to end with his 6-day-old daughter Mary. Basically.
Well,
he was wrong, but it did. It was right in one way. It did end with a lass, because it ended with Anne, but rather a lot.
Not nice to see. He had no faith at all in his daughter.
She was 6 days
old. He was also right about that.
She was 6 days old. and he had come to the throne at a month old.
Yeah.
So he thought all that extra experience he had would make a difference.
I don't think it was no, but I don't think it was it's a girl thing. I think it was oh shit, it's a 6-day-old baby thing.
Yeah,
basically. And
Yeah.
the that's not great for civil
Tara,
war.
Tara's asked, was there any reason why you had no faith? I think I think this is slightly delayed. So you're covering it. I think also it's a fact that when somebody is laying dying, they have morbid thoughts as well.
He'd only known death, basically. Yeah.
And I think it's also a case that Scotland was always the closest to being ruled as by committee, and I think there was a lot of quarrel and fighting happening, and it'd be very hard for a woman to hold that. Part of the thing of medieval kingship is being able to lead troops into battle, and while women, of course, physically can do that, it wasn't believed it was possible at the time, and she would not have had the training to sit a horse in armor and swing a sword and split someone's face into, because that is a skill separate and different from just riding a horse. You need to do other stuff as well. So I think there's an element to which a woman holding a woman in a medieval kingship role is always going to have a tough time of it, I think. Tara, you didn't make us repeat ourselves. We're adding to it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the whole fact that she was 6 days old. That's a long time to go until you are in your majority anyway, whether you're whatever you are, female or male. Yeah, and like you say, he's on his deathbed. He's pretty much seen a lot of death anyway. What's the likelihood that his 6-day-old baby girl is going to survive when the other children haven't, etc., etc.? So, Doug's asked, I thought there's a record of his heart back to Robert being buried elsewhere, as he'd asked for it to be taken into battle after his death. I don't know. I know
that happens a lot.
Yeah, I definitely know there's the story, isn't there, of Edward I wanting his bones or something to be taken into battle against the Scots, thinking that his presence is still required. Yeah, so I don't know.
How arrogant can you be?
Yeah, take my bones with you. Would you like me to get onto the couple of legends that are associated? These are the stories that are associated with Robert the Bruce. You may have covered.
Just one quick thing. Mayfair Forest Witch, I saw what you said and I have responded appropriately. Thank you for highlighting it. We don't want that sort of thing in our chat, spamming offensive stuff like that. So thank you for letting me know. I'll tell you about it later, ladies. But yes, I blocked the individual. We're done here. There have been some situations in the past where we'd noticed that behaviour.
Was this that person?
We've talked about it, and tonight was the night. We're done. And we want discussion, but don't derail the thread. People are here to enjoy themselves. Bugger that for a laugh.
We don't have to carry on that. Yeah. So, okay. So there's two stories that are associated with Robert. I've called one the spider, and I've called the other the head splitter. I don't know if you've already covered the head splitting when I got thrown off, but I will talk about it again. Anyway,
sounds good.
So the spider. This is so there's this legend that after the Battle of Melbourne in 1305, that it's a failed battle. I think he loses that one, and he's hiding out in a cave, and he observes this spider trying to take its thread from one part of the wall to the other part of the wall, and he watches it fail, and he watches it fail, and then he watches it succeed. And it's supposed to be that this was his inspiration for taking on the English again. Just keep going, Robert. If the spider can make its web, you can beat the English.
Do you know, I'm reminded of that. I'm reminded of that Jeff Bezos song. Come on, Robert, you can do it. You can beat the English to it.
It's a classic.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is a classic. It's a classic.
It's a banger.
that first appears.
Hanger.
No, not the song. I was just thinking about the
Oh, all right.
spider. I mean, yes, well done. Also for the rendition.
Quick, get on Spotify.
The first time, though, the spider in the cave legend tale, should I say, is ever heard is by Sir Walter Scott. So in his Tales of a Grandfather, which is basically a series of books that he wrote for his grandson.
Oh, that's
timeline
cool.
accurate.
Today in random shit.
Yeah, well, so timeline accurate, but folk stories, folklores and stories, pretty much inventions, and that's where we first hear that one. So never mind. The head splitter. So the head splitter. So this takes on legendary status during Robert the Bruce's lifetime. Now, this is a bit I don't know. Sorry if you've already covered a bit, but the day before the Battle of Bannockburn,
we have been asked this question in the comments about the English knight. So you're about to answer a question I've seen in the comments. We have not answered it yet.
So, yes, the day before the Battle of Bannockburn, there is another battle. So they do meet the day before. It's indecisive, but the legendary bit comes from an English knight called Sir Henry de Bohun. The English are mounted, the Scots are not. So you got Robert the Bruce, they're just with their battle axes. The English, so you've got your English knight, Sir Henry de Bohun, who is mounted on his horse with a lance, so supposedly superior to Robert. De Bohun spots Robert in the melee and full on charges at him with his lance. Robert holds his position until the very last second, when he dodges the lance at the same time as wielding with incredible accuracy and power the battle axe through de Bohun's helmet, splitting his helmet and his head in two.
Did he throw the axe?
Well, it's legendary, isn't it? I mean, this is a legendary.
Is this a propaganda tool?
Incredibly accurate. Yeah, so incredibly accurate, incredibly powerful. Splits this guy's head in two. And apparently the only kind of expression of regret that he makes is the fact that he's broken his his axe handle. Oh, look at that.
Which is fully psychotic. That is fully psychotic.
The other another version of legend says that his weapon was just completely destroyed. So and it's used as an allegory for the determination of the Scots. What I have to say though is also just on that point is of interest, because we look at Robert the Bruce, and especially in the like Outlaw King film adaptation I'm thinking about as well, Braveheart, it's Scots versus the English. There was a lot of Scottish infighting as well, and Robert the Bruce, you know, there's accounts of he killed as many Scots as he did English, because it was independence for Scotland, but under him he wasn't interested in any rivalry for that position. So there you go.
Which is probably why he did kill John III, the Red Comyn, because he was a rival. So even if he, you know, that thing, well, actually, he didn't. He went on there, that originally he pulled him there to kill him, and then someone else said, "Well, no, we don't know that. Maybe it was they had agreed something else that they were coming to talk about." Well, maybe that's what he told everybody. But those were the days, and he had the battlefield, as I said, when he was talking about Edward I, the battle and trying to keep Balliol away from the throne, the battlefield was the only way to do it. All the time there were other claimants. The only way he could do it was be the strongest on the battlefield.
He ordered the harrying of a number of towns and villages of his.
Brutal.
And they took every man, woman, child, animal. It was and that's him on the Scottish people. So I do think
so that's a good gittishness score there.
I think he yeah, he counts as a git.
So we've had
no chivalry.
No,
we've had Mayfair Forest Witch say the git peak moment, which I think peak git. Oh, where are we at peak git? He kills the guy and then is complaining about breaking his axe. I mean, that is literally like I smack you in the face and I'm like, my nail broke. How very dare you? On the YouTubes, I spotted Paige say, so he's a superhero. I mean, Thor could never. Is Thor smashing his hammer to smithereens on someone's face? No, he's not.
No.
But the Bruce is. And Doug says, ow, that's going to need a damp paper towel. I mean, maybe two. maybe even two. And one of the good ones, like, get plenty wet.
I was trying to decide, Kat, whether or not you were holding in a smile when Philippa said he mounted his horse. Because you looked like you
were. Well, when I said what almost got me smiling was when you said the English were mounted. I'm like, lucky them.
maybe I saw that little bit of a smile coming there.
Lucky them.
Someone did say. Let me see.
Intrepid Freddy Cat says that you could see me smacking someone. It's, I mean, yeah, fact. I'm not going to be. Yeah, that could definitely happen.
Lottie Rose has had a giggle about his weapon being completely destroyed.
that also. So he mounted his horse and then his weapon was completely destroyed.
Well, don't bugger out with animals, frankly. Is the moral of that story. Whoop.
While we've gone off track, do you want a comedy leprosy story?
Wait. Lottie said, I read it as the English were mounted by the Scots. I mean,
wow,
that'd sort it out, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's one way to deal with a conflict. You can fight or you can fuck, and let's I know which potentially causes the less bloodshed. So there we go. Have a snuggle, a daisy chain. That's what you need. All of the Scots, all the English.
I don't know.
Just a very special cuddle with a reach around. That's what they needed.
I used to work with a nurse actually who said that most mental health problems, in all seriousness, could be solved with a prostitute and a dog, because you have sexual release and then you have not sex with the dog.
With the dog. No.
So you have you have somebody is able to have access to sexual services should they require them, and then they have a dog for companionship at a different time. It's a different time.
See, this is where we go. How do we get it?
I feel traumatized by that comment. I feel traumatized.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say a hug. I thought you were going to say.
I thought you were going to say a hand job.
You could get a hand job off of a prostitute.
Intrepid Frady Cat says, I'm going to need to poke out my mind's eye.
There is not enough
brain bleach. A terrible state of ears.
Doug says you wait for ages for dogs on the NHS.
I mean, there's a backlog. There's a backlog. The base was just a puppy farm.
Oh dear. I have my comedy leprosy story.
Okay, please.
There was when I was at school, and we had that thing that you could do an A-level in that wasn't worth anything.
General studies.
There we go. And this woman came in, and she used to go backwards and forwards to different countries because she worked for a charity that wasn't probably called Leprosy UK. I'm sure it wasn't called that. But anyway, it was a leprosy charity, and they raised money to go and help in countries with leprosy was a problem, and it would raise money and awareness and treatments and things like that. So she had to go away for some reason for a couple of weeks, and she left her dad in charge of watering the plants, etc. Well, while she was away, he changed her answer phone message to, this is whatever the woman's name was of Leprosy UK that wasn't UK. I'm not here right now to take a message. Please leave a finger after the tone. So people have been ringing this number, including people who worked for this charity.
Oh my god!
That's really naughty.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I don't even know how to respond to that.
Just like even as a bunch of sort of 16-year-olds. We were all like, oh,
Yeah.
that was uncalled for. So
I bet he thought he was hilarious. He had a giggle about that for ages.
But like that, do you know what that is that is a dad joke where he's forgotten that his child is an adult with a fucking job
and some responsibilities and
a job that pays her fucking mortgage, and he has just gone, let's fuck around and find out. Let's see what else works out. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
Savage Dad.
You know he's in the worst nursing home in the world, don't you?
Jules asked, is this going to be yeast into the sun? No, probably not.
This isn't too bad.
It's been pretty sensible, actually. The last couple of weeks have been quite sensible. Yes.
Actually.
Which probably should point out how fucking depraved how fucking depraved the thing we yeast into the sun was, because what we just talked about included a massive gangbang on a battlefield, bestiality, the prescribing of both sex workers and dogs by the NHS.
Sounds worse when you're saying it like this.
I'm repeating your idea back to you.
It wasn't my idea.
I'm
she was
repeating
a qualified nurse.
I'm repeating. I mean, what was she very tired at the time? But all I'm doing, Catherine, is I'm repeating your manifesto back to you. That's what I'm doing.
Look, for those of you who have only come into this moment, there used to be this motto that everything was Catherine's fault.
That just was.
What do you mean was motto? Was the motto?
It wasn't me going about mounting horses.
That's a normal thing to say. You took it there.
I
Yes, I did.
It wasn't just me. Just like, no. And other people in the comments, Kat, it must have been you as well, because it's always you.
I opened my eyes and went, that's all that happened.
Yeah, but we all know what that means.
Your depravity.
Yeah,
just
I said it completely innocently.
Of course you did, because for the Bruce.
Yes.
And also, being mounted.
What's that, Kat?
What were you going to say?
The English all being mounted is a technical term.
They were mounted.
In both battles and pornography.
You have to add that last bit in there.
A different film. That was not Outlaw King for anyone who.
But I would be amazed. I would be amazed if there isn't a version of Outlaw King. That is the storyline. It's probably called Outlaw Ring.
Now.
Outlaw Ring piece.
Or not so peace.
Okay, so
Kath hasn't seen your t-shirt. Kath hasn't seen your t-shirt. For anyone who didn't see,
is she on Instagram or YouTube?
She's on Instagram.
Get your tits out, love. Beaver. Behold the mighty beaver. Oh, Daddy Pig Love Stick has got the porn title Backdoor King. Sir,
nice.
Congratulations. Muzzle toff. Welcome.
What's the alternative for Braveheart?
Everything's a dildo if you're brave enough. That's the long title.
The subtext.
Irish Birdie, Outlaw King, just remembering that scene.
I haven't seen that scene, so
you haven't seen any of the scenes. You need to watch it.
I'm also spotting on YouTube that Paige has said that I am a perfect angel. I would never say anything dirty. You're quite right. And then Intrepid Fraidy Cat has said that my halo is held out by tiny little horns. You are also potentially correct. Silver Hoshi has gone brave dick.
The possibilities are endless.
Oh, this is amazing.
There we go.
You're making notes of this when you start your porn empire.
No, it's for
titles.
Had bingo.
Had bingo. Yes.
Oh, good God. Oh, good. It's coming.
No, I was trying to look up the name of the actor. It's Chris Payne, isn't it? And he plays Robert the Bruce.
Had a comedy name.
Yeah, but I think he's done for Robert the Bruce what the hell's his name? He played Charles Brandon.
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. Yeah, Chris Payne does for Bruce what Cavill did for Brandon.
But is he Uhtred?
Oh, no one's Uhtred.
Renee has said, we've got a serious point here,
Oh, okay.
ladies. So rein it in.
Okay.
I'm actually not joking. Renee has actually come up with an interesting suggestion that maybe De Bruce had
psoriatic arthritis.
Psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah.
It comes from psoriasis, which I actually have, but psoriatic arthritis, where you get skin patches and also inflammation of the internal organs. And then also asked, what are we all drinking? Babe, I'm drinking water.
Water.
We are just like this. This is what it's like.
Deb says she needs Uhtred. Yeah.
Get in the queue.
Yeah, everyone needs Uhtred.
And
he can help me if he likes.
It always goes this way towards the end of the life. Look, it's the midweek hump.
We're getting you over the hump.
David, I hope he's not watching.
He is. He better be.
I think he does. He starts watching and then he falls asleep. He has to listen to us quite a lot, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, to be fair, we're rabbiting on.
He deals with our shit on the regular. God, there they are. Yapping away, narrating their existence over WhatsApp messages. Facts.
I'm so excited for Substack.
Irish Buddy said that they're taking a drink. She's taking a drink every time we are rude. So go easy.
That's your problem, love.
A new rule, in addition to don't Google it, is don't
drink when we're
make it a drinking game.
And when
woman.
When had bingo comes out, it's not a drinking game, because your liver will climb out of your arsehole and run away. You cannot. We absolutely do not endorse that message. This is not a drinking game.
We like you. Love. You made a poor life choice. That's on you.
Yeah, we like you, but don't drink. It's not a drink. We are not a drinking game. We cannot be. We cannot be. It's not good for your health. We're not good for you to do that. Don't do that.
Oh, my face hurts. Renee says you guys need to do an episode like Drunk History Folks. It would be hysterical.
I've been naked in 4 minutes. I've been naked in 4 minutes. I'd be just tits out, clapping my boobs. I can't do it. Cannot. I can watch them get drunk and judge them, but I can't do it.
Judgy. Yeah, we could do that.
Dear.
Wow. Dr. Cat said, as Dr. Cat always says, our inhibitions are low enough. We don't need them lower even more.
Facts. True facts. 100%.
It's sweet though that people think we're only like this because we're drunk.
No.
I don't know what that says about us.
Well, no, it says that other people are probably a bit more staid and sensible.
We are normally.
Are we? I missed that.
I keep a lid on it. I keep a lid on it in my professional life.
We have our moments where we're quite sensible.
To be fair, our WhatsApp group is pretty much like this.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for the Substack version. Everybody can really excited.
Tara Herbert said, could you imagine breaking news on Good Morning Britain tomorrow? 40 had fans having to have their stomach pumped after drinking game takes place. I mean, also, Good Morning Britain would be so scathing about us because we're women with opinions. So he'd be like, they would. Who saw the loose women thing? The loose women thing, where they talked about somebody on TikTok who does Goth Baby, and they were like, it's satanic. I'm like, are we really gonna connect goth style with something evil and wicked? I thought we had got past that. Picking on people for how they look. Ugh, gross. Gross.
Maria says,
do they read those sorts of newspapers?
Yes.
Maria, we got Maria off on a tangent because now, as soon as we mentioned Henry Cavill, her brain stopped paying attention. I understand.
Paige says, but Goth Baby is so cute. Goth Baby brings me so much joy to my life. I love her. She's just brilliant, and her sense of style. Also, I was a child that was dressed almost exclusively in black because I was and remain a spiller. This is not me being morbid. This is my uniform.
It's that uniform now, though. This is
now by accident.
Dark, but
I own like no light clothes because I cannot put I cannot put anything in my mouth, waka waka, without it spilling all over my tits.
Okay. See, this is what happens when we run over the hour.
It
Sorry.
seems to be that we
Sorry.
start off with a little bit of light comedy, like with the introduction and the trigger warning. What's
And
it
then the
called?
werecat comes out at the end of it, and I'm like,
and then we're sensible for a bit with the odds. Then it all just goes well.
degenerates.
Yes.
Right.
It's time.
Let's do the thing.
It's time. Philippa, what's happening next week?
Next week, we have the next in our series of gits.
Git.
We know that we're going to... I don't think I'm going to put a question mark on the title for this one because it is Oliver Cromwell next week.
The original deceased git, in fact.
The original, the one that the whole thing began about. Yeah.
Yes.
So
now the question is, what if we come away, because we went into a lot of these going, they're gits for sure.
True.
Ooh. And then we will question
it.
I might question it. I might come out, I might read about Oliver Cromwell and I might come out a die-hard Republican. You never know. Oof. Not American version.
No.
But UK version.
Have you done much reading about Oliver Cromwell?
Yeah, I mean, but you never know.
Because this is a different Oliver Cromwell.
You never know.
The Oliver Cromwell I've read out is a complete bellend.
I might find something in my research.
We don't like him because he got rid of a lot of the buildings that we would have liked to have seen.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just a massive hypocrite, and I hate that.
He is a hypocrite. He is, and also like he kills theatre. So I'm angry with him for that. Doug has asked,
is bought as dull.
Doug has asked, is gits gender neutral? For sure.
Yeah. We have some women coming up as well. In fact, I stipulated, we needed a quota. We needed equal opportunities in our
positive discrimination.
Irish Buddy's asked, could we do Thomas Cromwell instead? See, I was corrupted.
We did. Yeah, we did a clubhouse on this, didn't we? We were all determined to like Thomas Cromwell's a bastard. But I think we're like, oh, actually, it wasn't that bad.
And he is the reason for the beaver.
Yeah,
Thomas
he
Cromwell.
is. He had four beavers.
He gave
four beavers from Danzig. Mr. Cromwell did. That was funny. It was Kat's fault because I was trying to be sensible there, but I was just looking at her face going, if I keep looking at her, I'm going to lose my shit. And I did.
Lottie rightly pointed out, of course, what he did to the Irish. Like, yeah, I mean...
Oh, yeah, there was definitely gittish things.
Yes.
Yeah.
But virtually everybody who's held power in this country, in England, has been a dick to the Irish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not been good behaviour. It's not. No one has covered themselves in glory in their treatment of Ireland. That I'm prepared.
Or the Welsh, in fact.
Or the Welsh. No, exactly. Or the Cornish, for that matter. Or the Scots. Kind of a dick move. Kind of a dick move all the time. Just. Irish Buddy, I'm so confused. Thomas Cromwell rewilds the beavers.
Yeah, that's where we get the whole beaver.
It came, yes. The beaver story came from.
If you're
the beaver behind, Catherine.
If you're on Instagram, go to the thing where there's three icons, and the one in the middle has got all the videos underneath. It's called Fantastic Beasts and Where in History to Find Them, and it's in that probably about halfway ish, maybe a bit later. I don't know.
All of our just to be very clear, all of our gits will be deceased.
Yes,
we'll have no living gits.
Fairly deceased as well.
Well deceased.
Gits,
we aren't going to talk about the 20th century because obviously there are some very obvious gits that just will. I mean, it's clear. We'll leave them
to future historians.
I mean, we're kind of keeping it light. We don't necessarily want to spend an hour talking about the actively genocidal as much as humanly possible. So that is where we're sticking with this.
So,
okay, Philippa, can you tell us what's in our link tree, please? Which you can find in our Instagram profile.
You can find it on our Instagram profile. From our link tree, you can find the link to our Substack, which you can get you can subscribe to for free, and we're going to build that out so that you can get some goodies in there as well. That's not quite happening yet, but it will. What else have we got? You can buy us a coffee. You can help it keep us in. Well, we're actually saving up for a Winnebago because Catherine doesn't drink.
Catherine down.
Catherine doesn't drink hot drinks. So the next stage was Winnebago, so that we can basically tour.
I don't want to sleep in something that's moving.
You won't have a choice. You'll be strapped down.
So if you want to see. If you want to see that,
it's not natural. It's not natural.
Please do go to buymeacoffee.com/hadpodcast. But you can get that link in our link tree. What else have we got on there? You follow us all individually as well. Kat and myself are on YouTube. Catherine, are you on YouTube yet?
I am, but I haven't changed the name of it, and I haven't posted anything for a long time. So let's just leave that for now.
Tell us when you do, and we'll. So Kat is Reading the Past, of course. Big channel. She's a bit of a celebrity, actually.
Yes.
And I'm on there with British History, and then on Instagram you've got the historical collaborator Catherine, Katrina Marchant, and British History Tours is myself. So please.
Actually, for the historical,
Lottie Rose is asking if we could add the buy the badge feature to this. We are not big enough yet on Instagram to do the buy me a badge.
So bring your friends and make us big enough.
Bring your friends. Yeah, make us big. Okay.
Okay. So, just to wrap up then, if you are following us just on Instagram, then you can also follow us on YouTube. So go to search for History After Dark. If you are only on YouTube, you can follow us on Instagram at history.after.dark. Please subscribe, follow, like, watch, do all those things as much as you can, because we really, really appreciate it. And do bring your friends, because we're just hilarious as well as fairly knowledgeable sometimes.
Rennie has made a very good challenge, Catherine. What if Henry Cavill was in the Winnebago? Or Uhtred, actually, for that matter.
I see Henry Cavill. I'd be happy to have a cup of tea. Not a cup of tea.
No, you wouldn't have a cup of tea, would you, you weirdo?
Cup of coffee with him and a nice chat. If Uhtred was in the Winnebago, would he be driving it, or would he be like in the back, keeping us company? Well, because if he's driving it, I don't get to speak to him and spend any time with him, do I? So there's no point.
He'd be stuck in one place, and you could go.
Why are we kidnapping Henry Cavill? Right? This sounds
we're kidnapping Uhtred. No, he's coming with us voluntarily. We're not kidnapping.
I'm not planning crimes with you. No, sorry.
You do your own. You don't need us.
I don't think we were going to kidnap him. He would.
No, he's coming with us because
he would clearly come voluntarily.
Yeah.
So I tell myself. In my dreams.
So it depends how much time we've got to spend with him, I suppose. But then because you could drive around it in the day, and then at night time you can park it up.
Yeah, we're going to definitely drive you at night. Anyway, if you want to help us buy that Winnebago and talk to Catherine, buy us a coffee. Plan the crime of her says, plan the crime. Dorothy Mayfair Forest is a little bit concerned that we're getting suspiciously close to a yeeting.
Yes, we should stop.
We should stop. Thank you, everybody.
I'll count us out, shall I?
Yeah.
We're going to leave in 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.